Good evening again, and welcome to the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection's public consultation on the satanic Kakona development here in Sandy Point, Abaco. I am Dr. Rhiannon Murphy, concerning developments and projects of the size that the department requires an environmental impact assessment, and the environmental impact assessment is available for review at the Administrator's office, as well as online, as well as in the offices of the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection. The EIA process is such that for certain projects, we seek the public's consultation and the public's input, the public's viewpoints on the development. The purpose of this night's meeting is to get input from the public that is to be directly and indirectly impacted, positively and negatively, potentially by this project. As we conduct environmental impact assessments, many times we request that we give your
sorry for the technical. We thought we had everything worked out. There's always bugs. My name is Nassau. I represent the Nassau Capital Group, the Royal Family Trust, on the project known as Kakona. Well, we appreciate your attendance tonight. I'm going to try to keep my comments very brief so we can get on with the project. The purpose of this meeting, our purpose, is to introduce each of you to the Kakona project and discuss the environmental aspects of this project that have been submitted and published. I'd like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank the Prime Minister and his administration for all they've done to get this far, help us get this far. MP Pender for being here tonight. Administrator Wolf for being here tonight. I'd like to thank Stephen Neely and Mr. Byron for being here tonight, as well as our legal counsel, Phil McKenzie and Robert Coakley. We have the head of the Royal Family Trust, Mr. Steve Burrell, sitting on the front row, and one of our board members, Mr. Skip Spriggs. We appreciate you being here tonight very much. Thank you. We have a couple special guests with us. I just want to thank them for being here. We have 4 students from the University of Georgia that are witnessing all this and just sharing it with us, so we appreciate your attendance. Development in the Bahamas is a marathon, it's not a sprint. We've been working on this project for 18 years. We started it in mid-2006, I came on board in 2007. It takes patience and tenacity, and we've certainly been tested over the years. But we're still here. We're committed to this project in every aspect. We are dedicated to the success of Kakona since the first day we decided to purchase the property. So why Abaco? Simply put, it presents a unique opportunity for development of a luxury destination resort like no other in any location that I can think of. We have the people of the Bahamas that bring that special piece to the project that you can't find anywhere else. At least I couldn't find it in the world. We have the opportunity to work within a pristine environment. So we've designed a project with extremely low density that complements where our project is located. Let's face it, we have 2 properties that are surrounded by 22,000 acres of national trust land, national park land. We have to be good stewards of that environment. We want to introduce the world to Abaco and all that it has to offer, and to showcase it as a place to come with limited disturbance, enforcement of development guidelines and standards, to protect and embrace the environment, and thus the current master plan. We feel very strongly about what we've been able to put together. We think it's important to mention that and commend them for their being ever vigilant in their efforts to protect the Bahamas environment and natural resources, especially those associated with this project. We're looking forward and to collaborating with those organizations that have expressed an interest in this project, such as the BNT, the Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, the Mammal Research Center. Their interest lies in ours does, the same as ours does, with the preservation and being ecologically responsible. We are at the intersection of ideals, commitment to an ideal, and being ecologically responsible, and the development of how those can work in consort and coexist. Careful thought, it's approximately 105 acres in total, approximately a 40-acre marina, 39-acre marina. It has a small boutique hotel, approximately 25 beach bungalows, 50 harbor homes, approximately 50 condos, 10 villas, 240 wet slips, and a complement of dry staff. That will be supported by a back-of-house operation. The next project site is Idaho Bay. It's a 503-acre site on the east coast, approximately 5 miles north of Hole in the Wall. It's our sporting club, our golf course community with a golf course clubhouse, approximately 165 homes, a hotel component, a golf practice area. The next slide is Nassau Point. It has a golf practice area, a small branded residence club with 100 estate homes. So how does all of this help South Africa? So let's talk a little bit about some socioeconomic factors. If I get all of this. This project is going to have a lot of positive effects for each resident of South Africa, the island of Abaco, and the Bahamas in total. We are committed, and we've been committed since day one, to utilizing Bahamas talent, Bahamas people, Bahamas labor, skilled professionals. We haven't steered away from that. We have Ron, our environmental consultants, is Bahamian. We have our attorneys. We're already in talks with other support pieces, architects, construction management firms, project management firms, all local to the Bahamas. We've been in talks with them for a couple of years. So the residents of the Bahamas, the residents of South Africa, job creation, direct and indirect jobs. So direct jobs meaning they're employed in the design process, in the planning process, the construction of the resort, in the operations of the resort. There's 1,000 jobs there. On an ongoing basis at every level, not just labor type jobs, but all the way up into management. We intend to have a training program so that people that want to grow with the company and grow with the project, they'll be able to. We have indirect employment or indirect jobs. That's the companies that support the project, from manufacturing companies to equipment companies, food companies, etc. That's after the operations begin. Then you have those that, because of our existence, we have those Bahamians that say, you know what, I'd like to try and own my own business and see if I could have a business that would work in concert with this development. And then they sprout out outside and around the development in support of or totally independent of the development. So in speaking with Mr. Pinder this afternoon, there are so many jobs that can be created by working together with this project. And we intend to do everything we can to make that happen. The quality of life comes to play in this whole discussion as well. We have a lot of people in South Abaco that currently have to drive to Marsh Harbor, and they work in Baker's Bay, they work in other places, and they get home late at night, and their quality of life is less than it should be. By having our project going in South Abaco, we hope to improve that quality of life. At least we're going to try to do our part. I'd like to end this and keep my discussion short, my speech short, so that I can answer all of your questions. I want to say that I truly appreciate each and every one of you here tonight. It shows me that South Africa truly cares about what's going to happen here and what they want to see happen here. I want to hear from them. So when our question and answer period is ended this evening, I'm going to hang around and I'll be more than glad to talk to each of you. And I'll leave when the last one is spoken. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Steve Harrell. I'm the Senior Trustee for the Harrell Family Trust, and I'm here representing them along with my son, Chandler Harrell. And I was just thinking back, before I asked Tom to let me speak, about when I first came to Sandy Point. That was in 2005. And I think the first person I met was Perry Adderley. And we met at Eric's, I think it's Eric's Pub. So, in 05, we came across this property at the south of Abaco, Nassau Point, and High Bank Bay, and we just fell in love with it. Yeah, okay. And so in the process, we moved forward to buy this and grew to identify the opportunities like Tom mentioned for South Africa. And someone's telling me I've got 2 minutes, but you know, I just spent $50 million down here to kind of make this happen. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we love South Africa. And we think that we can make a tremendous difference in this community with you guys' support. Just thank you for coming.
Good evening. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you everybody for being here. My name is Mark Daniels. I work with Broad. I'm the principal of the environmental discipline. And what we do for any project site that's coming to develop is we try to get a sense of place. What that requires is we work with the development team for what their master plan and their vision is. We visit the site and conduct a number of studies. These include terrestrial resource studies. We do avian surveys, botanical surveys. Anything that moves or crawls, we try to document it. We look at how the socio-economic impacts, those are the people surrounding the site, will be impacted. We get in the water, we do marine resource surveys. We look at available data. We produce the first iteration of this EIA, and this is also part of the process, where we receive feedback from all stakeholders, people who are residents of Sandy Point, people who live in Abaco, people who are from Abaco who live elsewhere, people who are looking forward to economic opportunities, people who are concerned about the environment. This is the space to receive all of that feedback. What we do with that is we go back, we consult with both the stakeholders and with DEP to find a way to marry the development with the environment. to find a way that it can work. All development will have impact. Our job is to minimize, mitigate, or avoid as much as we can. So I know we produced a very long document. It was 600 and something pages. So for those of you who might have read through it all, congratulations. You are an environmental scientist and doing a thesis, right? And you can get a master's degree now. But just to run through quickly because we want to get to the question and answer period. So we talked about 3 sites. We covered Leeward Harbor, which is about 105 acres, Highline Bay, which is 500 acres, and Kong Sound Point, 375 acres. In our terrestrial resource surveys, there were a number of habitats we came across, including semi-permanently flooded wetlands, some permanently flooded wetlands, pinelands, mangroves, sandy beaches, rocky shorelines, and coastal coppice. I'll pull up a map to depict this. During our surveys, we do protected tree surveys. We work along with forestry on our protocol and our methodology, but we get an estimate of the density of protected species. There's a list that's been produced, and these are species that we look for in our protected tree surveys. Some of those we came across include red, black, and white mangroves, buttonwood, gamalame, silver thatch palm, gnarly, wally, mahogany, and others as well. South Abaco it's paradise. It's especially for avian diversity. If you're a birder and you're in the South Abaco, you will see any number of birds, whether it's in the pine habitat, the mangroves, on the coastline, near wetlands. So there's a high avian diversity here in South Abaco. There are a number of species that are listed by the IUCN as threatened, and this includes the Bahama swallow, Bahama warbler, white-crowned pigeon, Chuck-Will's willow, the Abaco parrot that we're all familiar with, and the brown pelican that we were just looking at 10 minutes ago out at the end of the beach there. Other species of concern were also observed, and you can find those in our EIA. For the Leeward Harbor site, which is not too far from where we are, we recognize that it is near to a bonefish aggregation site for spawning. The site area is used for fishing by some folk. There have been fish traps that have been observed out there. You can see people go out there collecting, whether it's curb off the rocks. And so it's a site that's used by people. North of the site is a homecoming site. So we're familiar with how that site is used by people of Sandy Point and South Abaco. Also nearby are 2 protected areas, the Cross Harbor National Park and of course the Abaco National Park. The Cross Harbor National Park being a marine protected area and the Abaco National Park being a terrestrial area. This is our terrestrial habitat map. So what we seek to do is define the boundaries between the different types of habitat. So if we start with the brown, that is pine woodland. So this would be the Leeward Harbor site. So just south of the runway that is there's ample pine habitat. There's a portion of it that is within the property boundaries. Moving south from that, there are large Moving south of that, there are areas of the site that are wet. It is a watershed area. For those who are familiar, there's a very large mangrove wetland just north of us. Once you cross the street and you get to the runway, that transitions into a watershed that's somewhat brackish, moves to somewhat fresh, and it connects to a semi-permanently flooded wetland to the east of the site. So the majority of the Leeward Harbor site is wet. There are mangroves that fringe along the coastline. There are some invasive casuarina species. We do find some coastal coppice. There is a dune there. It's not that tall, but it does exist. It is eroding, and rocky shoreline habitats. For the marine map, if we start south of the site in the deeper water, we find large areas of sandy areas with boulders, sponges, and open sand. As you get to the actual shoreline along the southern part of the property, there are some healthy coral habitat there. We did identify some endangered coral there, including elkhorn and staghorn coral. During our surveys, we did come across evidence of skittledy, stony coral tissue loss disease. Some of the other habitats that are there, they're dense sargassum beds, so large seaweed beds. As you move to the west, of the site in the more shallow waters. This is a very turbid area. The currents pushing from the deep water, push into the shallow area. There's lots of sand and sediment that moves through during the tide changes. We find areas that are dense seagrass, sparse seagrass. There's lots of rubble that has been covered by algae as well. That rubble is assumedly coming from rough weather that has broken up old coral and washed it up on shore. So generally the western side of Leeward Harbor is more shallow than south of the site. High Bank Bay on the Atlantic side, the terrestrial habitat map. Anywhere you go on this eastern shoreline, you'll find a similar pattern of habitats. You start with a very intact dune system, some of the most beautiful dunes you'll see in the Bahamas, intact, covered with seals. It's been washed over in some places due to rough storm. Very minimal invasive species along those dunes. In areas where it has washed over, you can see there's an area in blue where water has settled. We found that mangroves have colonized that area and thrive in those areas. As you move further towards the peak, you will find stunted coastal coppice. So that's our typical forest, but because of the forces of wind, salt water, you find that the vegetation is stunted and very dense. As you go over the peak, where it's subject to less forces, you get a taller canopy, taller trees, not as stunted, and that would just be your broadleaf coppice, well, not just, beautiful broadleaf coppice. And as you continue further west, you start to get into the pine territory. So there's a transition period between the coppice and the pineland that happens between this green and orange area. The waters on that east side are rough. Anyone who's been over there, you will find it. To find a good day to go swimming at a certain time of year is not easy. But when you do get in there, predominantly at the High Bank Bay area, you do find sandy bottom. There's some hard bottom with some sponges, some coral. It is not a thriving habitat in terms of rare and endangered coral as Leeward Harbor is, but there are coral present, and it is a high energy area. Conch salmon, essentially the same as High Bank Bay in terms of the habitats. We have our coastal dunes, coastal shrublands. We have the stunted coastal coppice. We have overwashed areas that have remained, that supported mangroves to grow in those areas. After you get over the crest of the hill, we now get taller coppice forests and then the pine forest. In terms of the marine habitat map, habitats we found near shore included hard bottom areas, rock, marble, turf, and sand. The intertidal zone being rocky. There was also some sandy intertidal zones, and soft bottom with sand, rock, and some marble turf in the lighter, more mustard areas. Again, a high energy shoreline. Fish diversity, it's healthy, it's intact. Some of the impacts that we recognize that this project brings is there will be habitat loss. So you go ahead to clear a site to begin your development, you're going to lose the vegetation. If you're going to be excavating for a marina, you're going to lose that habitat. For the Leeward Harbor site, that would be some of those wetlands, some of those mangroves, some of the ephemeral wetlands that are there. During construction, organisms are temporarily displaced. Some of them are permanently displaced. Those that are temporarily displaced, as a part of our mitigation, we seek to find ways to bring them back onto the site. Whether that be through reforestation, leaving in conservation corridors, and the like. When you're working in coastal areas, there will be turbidity. So for Leeward Harbor, the marina will be dug. That's an inland marina. So the process for that is you excavate inland, you allow that turbidity to settle, and then prior to opening a plug, you then have your turbidity controls in place to reduce the amount of sediment that enters into the marine area. There will be a need for dredging of the entrance channel on the southern side of the property. Deep water is nearby, and so that channel will not be extensively long. On the western side, there will be a flushing channel. During the creation of that channel, you will find some increased turbidity in that area. Turbidity controls will be put in place. But we also find that area is naturally turbid at times of the year. When you remove vegetation, you're going to have erosion. So you would have to put in erosion controls in the site, so silt fences, other barriers to prevent runoff from entering into sensitive areas on the project site and surrounding the site as well. Geological starring refers to, yes, we're going to dig up rock, it's going to be graded, and that's permanent alteration. Any construction site comes with air and noise pollution temporarily, so that's vehicles driving around, that's the dust that's being created from driving on pathways. Those can be mitigated against, we water pathways, we put down mulch or aggregate to prevent dust from being transmitted into the air. We put speed limits on persons who are driving vehicles. Those impacts will drop off as the development is operational, and then you will have the noise that's of a typical development, your generators, your boats, and persons moving in and around the property. We are well aware of the pristine habitat for the Abaco Parrot. The Abaco Parrots in the National Park. The project site for Palm Sound is adjacent to, you would have to pass through the Abaco National Park through Road 50 to get to those properties. So we recognize that, and we want to work along with the Bahamas National Trust on that to reduce impacts to nesting grounds, parrots, and other resources that are found within these parks. There will be increased marine traffic in and around these areas. There's going to be a marina, more boating traffic. Persons are looking for recreational experiences. There is a crossover national park that is nearby, and you may find persons are visiting that more frequently. Now it's mostly locals, maybe tour guides that visit that, people who've traditionally been using it for years. We talked a bit about the national parks already. When we understand that for any national park, if their neighbor is going to develop, then it increases the risk of, say, predators. We know that there's been a big program removing the predators of Abaco Parrot from the national park, and so there would need to be a close collaboration to reduce the instances of feral predators, mainly cats being one of the main predators. Tight control of your solid waste and the waste you produce will reduce pests. But we understand that these are things that are of concern to any national park. The pine forest is a fire regime, which every now and again the pine will burn, and it would need to be burned on purpose by those who manage it. And so we look to strengthen that relationship between the Bahamas National Trust and the developer to ensure these impacts are limited, mitigated, and we can find a way to coexist. We talked about the feral species population. We talked about bonefish and spawning grounds. We recognize that the western side of Abaco, there's a route for fish species to travel from the marls to cross Harbor National Park, and the creation of the marina potentially will disturb that migration route. So we are looking to speak to those who have studied these areas, who know these animals, to see if there's a way that we can mitigate against those impacts. Also, we know South Abaco is big for marine mammals. There's decades of research here, so there's concerns about boat strikes and other impacts of marine mammals. And also the hunters. When we go on these properties, we see where there are hunting blinds, where persons have cut down forests and do traditional hunting, whether you're hunting white-crowned pigeons or you're hunting wild hogs. Right? South Abaco is a pristine hunting ground. So we talked a little bit about the mitigation. So just to recap, silt fencing around the project site during construction, and in certain areas where there's runoff to prevent sediment from entering into sensitive areas. Invasive species removal. So we talk about Casarina, we talk about Scabola. There's also the prevention. So once you begin a project, due diligence is required to make sure additional species do not get established. There is one that's pretty populous inside Abaco, that's the wild hog. It has an impact on the vegetation, it has an impact on the ecology out here, and we'd be looking to see if there's ways that this project, this development can find a way to help with that. We talked about proper site drainage to reduce impacts to the water table. So we know Abaco is freshwater, freshwater is important. The pineland, wherever you see pine, there's freshwater around. For the Leeward Harbor site, the majority of the property is outside of the pineland habitat, and we are conducting hydrology studies to determine what impacts may happen to the water table layer if there is a freshwater lens present on that site. We talk about watering the site to reduce dust. Before you go in, you push a tree. Before you start the dredge, you do pre-clearance surveys through sensitive organisms or slow-moving organisms that may not be able to move themselves. When it comes to revegetating, native flora is the best way to go. That's what our native ecology requires. That's what the birds need. And so working along with the forestry department and with our protected tree permits, we're required to replace 3 to 1 any protected species that has been removed. We're also establishing native tree nurseries, working along with other local partners for restoring areas, and also wanting to contribute to national initiatives of building native plant stocks. And as a part of that, the forestry unit will be monitoring and evaluating what we do on a monthly basis. And this is something that's typical across projects, and we'll do their due diligence to make sure we do what we say that we're going to do. So that is the end of that portion of it. If you want to come up. But just again, I recognize that this room has various persons in it. Those who may be for or against, they don't know, they want to come and question, they want to learn more. And so this is the time where you ask the questions, you can send in your emails, you can write a letter. We will review all the questions and comments, all the concerns. We will document them. We will address them appropriately with the stakeholders and along with DEP to find a way to make the development and the environment work. So that's it for me. So welcome, Dr. Neely.
I just want to point out that we have some important information on the screen. The email addresses for the developer as well as the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection are found on the screen right now. info@Kakona, KAKONA.com and information@dtp.gov.es. You may also call the department at 322-4546. And I would like to remind you of the date on the screen. The 21st of November will bring this portion of the public consultation to a close. And so by 5 p.m., if you want to send in your physical comments to the office of the DEPP, we expect that to be in before 5 p.m. If you want to email it before 11:59 on the 21st of November, that public consultation period will be closed. If I take care, we have some sound on this one. If we can turn the lights back on. And we'll now open up the floor for questions. We'll put this mic down on the floor, and I invite people to make use of this aisle right here as you come with your questions. Okay, does someone have someone up here looking at the questions on Zoom? Oh, me? Okay. So we already have questions. All right, so since I don't have anyone on queue in the building, I'll start with the question that's online. How do you plan to mitigate the irreversible damage to critical marine ecosystems such as coral reefs and mangroves during construction, especially considering the high likelihood of dredge-related sedimentation and pollution? The environmental impact assessment does not address the issue of sedimentation and its potential impacts on marine ecosystems, specifically in relation to dredging activities. It outlines mitigation strategies such as the use of silt fencing and turbidity curtains to reduce sedimentation entering the surrounding waters. However, these measures are often temporary solutions and are more about minimizing harm during the construction phase rather than preventing irreversible damage. Let me have that. That'll be another question, and so you can take two. All right, the report falls short of offering concrete long-term solutions that ensure the protection of critical ecosystems beyond the construction phase. The mitigations are mostly short-term and don't fully guarantee irreversible damage. Okay, so I think those are two similar questions.
Thank you for your question. So to frame it, when the EIA will present the impacts, potential impacts and mitigation strategies at a high level. The next phase, the environmental management plan, is where we actually lay out the step-by-step instructions that the contractors, anybody working on that site will follow. So when you're talking about turbidity and impacts to marine areas, yes, installation of turbidity curtains, sill fencing are part of the strategy. When it comes to damage to marine resources, if there are viable coral that can be transplanted that aren't showing signs of scility, that won't spread disease into other places that are suitable for transplanting is an option. When it comes to how turbidity affects marine life, that area west of Leeward Harbor is naturally turbid on a daily basis. What we find is turbidity impacts marine species when it sits in an area for an extended period of time. Typically in these projects, you're dredging for, if it's a marine, if it's an entrance channel or a flushing channel, this is a shorter period of time. In areas where there are high currents, the turbidity, if it does escape the barrier, does not linger. And there is a measure of NTUs. That is how much turbidity is allowed outside of the barriers. So what we have found is that in these exercises where you're creating entrance channels or flushing channels, the turbidity is temporary and it doesn't stagnate the marine life there to have long-term impact. The long-term impact will come from dredging of the seabed, and prior to that, if there are resources that can be transplanted, then we will do that. And this will be laid out in the management plan.
Okay, we'll take a question from the room. Any questions online?
Hi, good day. I'm Dr. Anselino Davis. I hold the Science and Perspective grant, and really I'm here to reflect on the EIA process, the debt responsibilities, and kind of the general context of this, although you know you're going to receive a 27-page list of comments from me regarding the EIA. Right now, the DAP website is down, but I know inside the legislation it says that the director of the DEPP is supposed to make a website where the EIAs and EMPs are supposed to be posted so that people can see them. So I'd like perhaps the director to comment on that for us. As far as the EIA goes, I think for me, I have some issues with the plan surveys, the amount of area that you use inside I think you use Reveille or Releve surveys, and they don't seem really appropriate for this type of habitat or for the scale that you're using, the amount of surveys that you did. It doesn't seem like it will fully represent the area that you're talking about. So when you go to replace the trees 3 to 1, I think the people of Abaco may get shortchanged, or the people of the Bahamas, depending on where you're planting them. So if perhaps the Braun team could reflect on why that was chosen, why that technique was chosen, and if you have a reference to why that would be appropriate. On the side of the investors and the leaders who are the proponents of this, I really want to point out to you the kind of the size inside the room. When you mentioned Baker's Bay as an example for being ecologically friendly in this community, the coastline, the corals, the seabed in that area was devastated, and they have a similar project where they put a golf course on a coastline near sensitive areas. And that's a big issue, especially when you're between a coastline with our corals and stuff and a national park. all of those inputs, fertilizer, the water, the invasive grass and plant species that you're proposing to put in that High Vine Bay and that Compound Point area, not good for pirates, not good for the Bahamian environment. And all the palms that you have inside your renderings and stuff on all your beautiful images in the EIA, they're not good.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I think that was 3 questions. So we'll let some other people take a question, and then I'll answer your question, and then Ron answer the question.
But just for Ron, this is the last one actually. For Ron, also for your legal harm or modeling inside.
Directed to me, I do not anticipate that any of our ability to get funds from the Global Environmental Facility will be impacted by anything proposed here this evening.
Thank you for your questions, Dr. Davis. Regarding the plant surveys, so I am the botanist that did those surveys. As a part of going to a site, you need to wander around and look at stuff. So that's the relevant part of it. It's wandering around and writing a running list of plants. Outside of that, there is a structured process that the forestry department has worked with us on, and that is where we do protected tree surveys. And that is with a measured plot where we estimate the density of all of the protected tree species that are in that plot. We don't only mark protected trees, we mark everything that's in that plot. So it's a combination of, yes, wandering around and poking yourself into different holes and walking on this place. You put a pin on a map, you hike an hour or 2 to it to see what's there, yes. But then you also do structured plots that then help you to estimate density and create your maps.
Okay, the question on line has to do with land allocation. I might put up the slide that shows the potential overlap between this project and the park. So the question is, much of the land that is being proposed for the development appears to be crown land. Could you clarify which areas of crown land that the developer is trying to purchase, and which areas are of the proposed development that were presented as a marine protected area in 2015 and 2021? The person wants to see which lands are private lands and how the project overlaps with the MPs.
This map is, they can't see it. There you go. So we can see the Leeward Harbor property. Yeah. The Leeward Harbor property is here. Outside of the terrestrial boundaries of the Cross Harbor National Park. Compound Point and High Vine Bay, they lie coastward of the Abaco National Park, and there are private land holdings that encompass the entire tip of South Africa. For the marine areas, we do not have that on this map. I anticipate that extends here. As the Bahamas National Trust is in the house, maybe you have an updated KMZ file of that. At the time of creation of this map, it was not gazetted, but that can be updated in the next iteration of our EIA to determine where the site lies in relation to the marine protected area.
So, yes, could I get the lights again? Sorry, I made you work tonight. Updated maps were requested from the Bahamas National Trust. I will share them. I received some yesterday. We have another question from the floor, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Fallon Cartwright. I'm the Director of Science and Policy for the Bahamas National Trust, the authority that is mandated responsibility for the Abaco National Park. I will hold all comments in response to the notion that we are in support of this project. And Everyone is welcome to read our press statement that went out to the public today, and I'm sure that my executive director, who is on the call, when she has the opportunity to speak, will address our myriad of concerns. I have very specific questions about the improvements to Road 50. Well, I can't resist but making everyone aware that with this round of consultation, we have not been consulted directly. And considering that you are proposing improvements and let's use the right term, these are logging roads. So it's not an improvement, you are creating a new road and also adding new roads that go through the park. And no one has contacted us to discuss this. We have responsibility for this area. That road would not just impact nesting sites and affect the Abaco Parrot, which is an iconic species that park was intended to protect, and we've been working for 30 years to manage that species. We have people here, and I know you mentioned the community, but we have people in this community that work every day to manage invasive species, and I'd like Marcus and Arthur and Devontae to stand up, please. And Marcus said he didn't want to speak, but I mean, literally every day. Dedicating their work towards saving this imperiled species that is iconic, unique to the Bahamas, and threatened. The road is not just going to impact the parrot, it's going to fragment the entire park. How are you going to address the issues of that fragmentation, all of the flow and connectivity that will be impacted by that? This is not just, there's immeasurable biodiversity inside that park. Other bird species like the Bahama warbler that we haven't seen in Grand Bahama since Dorian. This is a safe space for that. What are you going to do about impacts of the increased traffic, of bird strikes, the snakes, all of the other critters that we're not thinking about? You are literally separating the park, and that is not an insignificant impact. So I would like to know more about what does that improvement entail, and what really are you going to do to mitigate those impacts? In the event that the BNT, we find a mutually agreeable approach.
Thank you. So an informal request for a meeting was made yesterday with the BNT, and a formal letter for a request for a meeting will be sent post this meeting.
Yes, we understand all of your concerns, and we do want to sit down and speak with the Bahamas National Trust. We've had conversations in the past loosely around this and what this might look like. So we understand, yes, there are impacts when it comes to putting roads into areas that previously haven't had a road. There are logging roads there. Some of these roads have previously been cleared to a certain width. Some of it is overgrown, the main Lighthouse Road. But it would require people on the ground monitoring. So before there's any active machinery that moves through there needs to be surveys. You need to use environmental windows to make sure that there's no active nesting that's going on. We won't be able to prevent every bird strike, but there are ways to mitigate that. You can do speed limits. There's crossings with certain animals. There's strategies in other national parks around the world employ who have roads running through their park, and they develop their park. And we want to sit down and speak with you guys and see if there is a way to appease your concerns and minimize these impacts. Marcus.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
Everything's here. Okay, with the fixing up the roads and going through 50 road and all that, right? I don't already plot out all of the areas where the pirates nested and everything. So that part is out of that. Just me and David, that was my boss. Eric used to be my boss, but he's no longer with Bahamas National Trust no more. But an area I don't already have a product. So anytime there's any movement to go down there to push the road and do any work down there, number one, I should know about it. And that's why I can make sure, let them know exactly which side to go on and which side not to go on. Okay? It's not hard like people try to say about the pirates. To know the pirates are really next, you have to be down there day by day and understand what's going on. So a lot of people go and say this and say the next thing. I'm the main man for it, okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to do. There's a question about basis species, the hawks and hunting factors at Abaco Parrots right now. With all the management BNT has to implement to bring the species back. How will that foraging source be replaced? So the conversations between the DEPP and this developer and the BNT have not yet begun since they stopped 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And so they will resume, and these questions will be fleshed out. Please understand that this is the beginning of a process within for regulatory approval, and this environmental impact assessment is not, this particular one will change as we move on throughout the public consultation process. So.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anthony Freed. I'm a botanist with the Bahamas National Trust. I have some questions to Braun and these are directed to Deb as well. Concerning your survey methods, particularly your calculations of protected species. And before I begin that, I want to note that there were 4 Part 1 species that were listed within that document, but only one of those species was given the numbers of how many individuals were there. These are our endemic plates, so these are plates that are unique to the Bahamas, and if that's going to be addressed, calculate the numbers for those endemic Part 1 species. Secondly, in your methodology, you described doing plots, and these plots were 66 square feet or a tenth of an acre. 66 square feet is not a tenth of an acre. 66 square feet is a thousandth of an acre. There's 43,560 square feet in an acre, which means when you did your calculations, you were off by a factor of about 100 in the number of individual plants that were there. And how is that going to be addressed?
Thank you for your question, Dr. Freed. What you would have seen in the methodology was, let's call it a typo. So our plots are 66 feet by 66 feet. That equals 4,356 square feet, which is a tenth of an acre. What you would have seen in the document is a typo error, and it'll be corrected. We've worked along with forestry on multiple projects using the same methodology time and time again, and if we look at the numbers and look at the density, the numbers that we've gotten from our results speak to an area that is larger than 66 square feet. What we've flagged and tagged in our data won't fit in 66 square feet in terms of trees. So we apologize for that oversight in the documentation of our methodology, and that will be corrected in the next iteration of the document.
Those Part 1 species as well, please.
And we can collaborate and review on that and look at the data. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Miolis, the owner of Abaco Parrot. Our farm is certified organic, so my concern is, from what I've seen with the pictures, a little bit of high density. I might be wrong, they're standing corrected. And also, really quick, the housing seems to be butt right up to the forest. I'd like to recommend some type of buffer. There has to be some type of compromise. Thank you for investing in our country, okay? But I'd like to see some type of buffer there with the green land to the pine, to the forest. Also, it was mentioned that this would bring a better quality of life to the communities. Right now, I'd like to also recommend that you build a school. You're going to be hiring, if this comes to fruition, you're going to be hiring adults. In a few short years, you're going to be hiring their children. And the better they are trained and educated the better for you and the better for them. Our children right now are being bused 56 miles, 2 times a day. Where they can be studying sports, exploring nature. So those 2 points I would really like you to consider. Again, please compromise. I think it's a little high density, a big buffer. Please, the school if we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Bales. Mr. Bales, I'd like to respond directly to what you just said. So, with regard to buffer, let's speak of density first. So, Leeward Harbor, for obvious reasons, is on roughly 103 acres. It's obviously the highest density. Ibank Bay, 165 homes. Calm Sound, 100 homes on 375 acres. 165 homes on 503 acres. The majority of those homes at Calm Sound are from the ridge line forward. We don't have, right now, have any development plan for behind the ridge line yet. With regard to Ibank Bay and the golf course, that golf course spans through the property. We did that on purpose to spread those houses out. Between all 3 properties, we have less than 18% density across all 3 properties. That's pretty low density compared to many developments around here. Not going to make. As to buffer, we have a landscape buffer around the property. If we need to widen it, we'll widen it. Okay. We have on Calm Sound and High Bank, we have both primary fly zones and secondary fly zones. We're aware of that. So we're trying to do what we can to construct the homes, the hotel, the golf course, mainly the vertical product, so that it's built into that particular lot, and we only we very delicately, surgically remove those species for that lot so that when the home is finished, it looks like it's been there for a long time. We don't want to destroy more than we have to. And yes, ma'am. And I've talked to Ron about flagging species prior to construction of a home, a building, a vertical product, so that those plants can be excavated, moved to a nursery, so that they can be replanted. So we're not there yet. We're not, we don't have a landscape plan yet, but we've already talked about these, some of the things you mentioned tonight, and we plan on addressing those. As to a school, I'll take that under advisement, and I certainly can't commit to that tonight, but as far as training for adults and upcoming potential employees, etc., absolutely. We have every intent on providing some sort of a training program so that they can continue to grow with us. If we can work it out and assist in a school that's already here by adding to that, technology-wise, whatever, to enhance what's already in place, then yes, we're going to consider that. And we would appreciate any suggestions you may have. Yes, sir.
Thank you. You can say.
Hi, Mills. Most people that know me know that I'm a quiet person. I don't like to speak publicly. This project is very important to me. That's why we drove over 100 miles to be here tonight. And what's going on in this room remind me of my classmate. His name is Raul Bristol. He was in charge of Samaritan First. During the hurricane, You said coppice with Abaconians. They let everybody else talk about Abaconians, but they wouldn't speak. There's so many people in here that this is going to impact positively, but they let the outsiders come in and give their input. I'm here. I am here to say that this is the only thing that the government has done that I approve in 3 years. I am speaking, for those who don't know, I won in an election and I got 700 votes, 719 votes. And I won a local government, I got 300 votes. So I'm speaking for 1,000 people here tonight. I'm also the president of the All Abaco Taxi Association, and we are on board with this program. Department, where is the environment people? Today, for 30 years, and it's dark in the place where they go over very close to the airport for 30 years. Where is the environmental people there? We need them to do that. That is our future. My question, my last thing, I'm speaking for 1,000 people. I want to speak for this. What I'm concerned about is that I am a 10th generation Abaconian. And I see the Eric Carey used to run that place, the National Trust. They made all these parks, national parks, without any consultation with us. What about Abaco? I'm hoping that more meetings like this will be conducted with the local government board in Sandy Point, and more people that look like me. Because there's a lot of people that comes aboard want to dictate to us. We don't need to be dictated to. I just want to say thank you. I didn't know your name, but I've been following you for years. Thank you for being a direct descendant of Job.
I don't think that there
but I mean, it doesn't come from out of the air. The water still has to come from out of the ground, if I'm not mistaken. Or we can talk about desalination systems. So all of these things, as much as we need, and all developments and progress come at an expense. We want the cost of that to be less than the benefit of that. And I think that there are people in this room that perhaps you should have maybe a closer, more intimate communication with, because at the end of the day, we would love to see development, controlled, and one that the synergy between what you're doing and what people are afraid of losing, there can be some the more harmonious mesh. So it's not a counter question, it's just a comment, and good luck.
Thank you.